Hey there, I'm Verity Songon and this is the Confident CEO podcast, the show that takes you behind the scenes of starting and running your small or not so small business. We will cut through the misinformation and bad advice about starting and running a business and give you actionable tips and advice that you can implement to grow, scale and achieve your business goals. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Ellie, who is the CEO of Styling Social. Ellie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
No, it's absolutely our pleasure. And I would love to, first of all, hand over to you. Tell us who you are, what Styling Social is all about, and what it is that you do with your company.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Ellie, and like Verity said, I am the founder of Styling Social. Created Styling Social back in 2019 now. So it's been running for quite a few years, and I ultimately started Styling Social first of all as a company to help influencers gain brand sponsorships. And that basically took off in the first year, and I went literally from zero to a six-figure company. And prior to Styling Social, I was actually working in a supermarket, and I was working for minimum wage. I was stacking the shelves, so I was serving the customers on the tills, but I always felt like I wanted to have my own business. I just didn't know what that looked like. So started off with kind of like the influencer coaching, really enjoyed it and had major success with it. But the business had such a quick success that so many people were like, oh my God, can you actually business coach and teach how you're able to scale the company so quickly? So 2023 now, and my main focus is the business coaching. And we actually don't really coach influencers anymore. Sometimes we have clients come through that are still doing that, but primary focus is female entrepreneurs that want to grow their online business. So yeah, that's a little bit about the company. We have various different offers. Like I do coaching myself, we do masterminds, we also have the membership, which Verity is in, which is where you get monthly training,
Absolutely.
like that. So there's really something for everyone. But yeah, it's basically a big community of female entrepreneurs who want to grow their online business, but they want to do it in a way that's super sustainable. I'm very much like the anti-hustle culture, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But yeah, it's really about someone who wants to grow their online business but still be able to live like their dream life at the same time, and have that really nice balance.
I love that. That is just such a fantastic nutshell of the company there. Now, I want to pick up on something you said. You said that when you first kind of started, you were doing your supermarket minimum wage job, and then you were talking about us and the company because you've got a team at Styling Social now. It's not just you. So how do you go from minimum wage, working in a supermarket, seeing, because I'm guessing you probably saw like all these people like really blowing up on social media and feeling quite inspired. How do you get from your supermarket minimum wage job to actually kind of joining the ranks of the people who probably inspired you right at the beginning?
Yeah, and it's definitely, I always get asked this question, and it's definitely a process. It's not like there's one tip that can just get you like overnight success. It's definitely it's almost like that snowball effect, like it's a momentum of things building up. But one thing that really helped me was actually surrounding myself with other entrepreneurs. And I think especially in the early days of business, it can be hard to do so because your business might not necessarily be bringing in the funds for you to join something like a mastermind. And a mastermind is just essentially like a close group where you're going to be surrounded by other entrepreneurs. But yeah, I remember like I always wanted to join a mastermind when I was in my early days, but I never like had the finances to actually be able to do that. So one thing I did to make sure I was surrounded by other entrepreneurs was being really intentional with the people who I followed. Now, as we know, there's so many incredible online entrepreneurs, but I would recommend following accounts that actually align with your values. So for example, if you're following various different business coaches, there might be a business coach that has this incredible successful business, but they're working 24/7. And I recently I think I might have mentioned this on the podcast, or I did it in an Instagram live, but it was like I recently at the start of this year, I basically unfollowed anyone, whether that was a business coach or an entrepreneur or just anyone I was following who didn't have the same values as me, because you could take advice from someone else who's grown an incredible business, but they might not have actually the business structure that you want. So you're going to be taking on advice and then end up working 24/7. And for me, that's not sustainable. That's not how I want to be building my business. So I think, yeah, being really intentional with who you follow is going to be key. Another thing that I did when I was in the supermarket and I was like kind of transitioning to doing the business full time and, then scaling it, was being really, really intentional and organized with my time. Because if you're at the point right now where you're still balancing either a full-time or part-time job before you make that transition, the biggest thing you can do is to be really, really organized and really intentional with A, what you're working on, and B, how everything is mapped out. So for me, I did evenings at the supermarket. So I was finishing work at 11 p.m. I would come back, have dinner, and then I would work into early hours of the morning. Now, for a lot of people, that just sounds absolutely crazy, but if anyone's worked evenings, you kind of sleep in the day, like that's kind of how it works. And then you'll wake up late, then you go to your job. So being up till like 2, 3, 4 a.m. was kind of like the norm anyway. Not that I would recommend that, but if you're working evenings, that's an example. So I would basically just be really intentional. I'd be like, right, I'm going to have my sleep. I'm going to do my shift at the supermarket. Then I'm going to have these couple of hours in the evening. So what am I going to spend my time doing in the evening? And I would pre-record content so that I had stuff to post prior to starting work, during work on my lunch break, and then some stuff after work. And then once all my content was kind of posted and I like batch created it all in advance, I used to literally, I remember I had a folder on my iPhone and it was called like, I don't know, stories, and then it would have the date of the week. And I would just have literally everything pre-made, pre-recorded, so that, you know, because I couldn't really be posting at 11 p.m. it wouldn't really make sense. So that was one thing I did. But I think also having Asana, I don't know if you use Asana, Verity.
Oh my God, I am. So this is what makes me laugh about Asana, is that I am addicted. I love Asana so much. And then it's one of the things that you talk about a lot in the membership. And we'll probably mention the membership a couple of times to anyone who's listening. So I'll make sure it's linked in the show notes below. But when I joined the membership, you started talking about Asana so much. And I was like, oh, Asana is also my best friend. Like, yes. I'm just addicted to it. It's all pink and it's so color coded.
I love it.
I love Asana.
And Asana is free, which I think is even more amazing. But literally, I used Asana back in those early days, 2019, 2020. I still use it now. Asana, other than my planner, Asana is the only project management tool I use. I have everything in there. And I'll give you the link as well, because I have this course called Plan for Profits, where it's basically like a deep dive into Asana and all of my different boards. But that's something to be really intentional with, is have, whether you use ClickUp, Asana, whatever project management tool, or you have like a physical planner, be really intentional with what you are actually planning in your day. A lot of people, when they're in the early days of building their business, will focus on things that aren't actually going to move the needle forward, i.e. spending ages on a website, graphic designing, stuff that's not like redoing your brand colors a million times. Think about the things that are actually going to move the needle forward in your business, i.e. posting content, gaining visibility, gaining trust. That's what's going to build your brand. That's what's going to get you sales. And here's the thing, like, as much as I have my own website and people come through it and people buy through the website, I would say there's got to be a high percentage, maybe like 80 to 90% of people aren't coming through the website. They're coming through Instagram, TikTok, podcast, and they're clicking a checkout link, which is on Teachable. And it's not a super branded website or anything. It's just a hosting platform where we host the courses, because people aren't worried about the aesthetic of the whole entire website. They're here to learn from you and what's inside that course or that product or that service. So I think as well, don't overcomplicate things and don't feel like you need to have everything perfect. I'm like, 3 to 4 years into my business now, and it's only now that really I've established super consistent aesthetic branding. I've always had branding, but it was never kind of like a main focus point. So I think that's really key to mention as well, is actually focusing on stuff that's going to move the needle forward in your business.
It's so important. I want to really pick up on what you were saying as well about it's got to be those needle movers that you focus on and you prioritize, because you're right, we've all been there where we've fallen down a rabbit hole of, you know, oh, this is the brand color that I'm going to go with, and I'm now going to go redo my entire website, and I need these images, and if I don't have like it looking like this, then no one's going to buy from me. And you can spend like an entire weekend, an entire week sometimes, and you get to the end of it and you're like, what have I actually done that's moved the needle forward? Because in that time, I've been so busy doing that. Like you said, I've created no content for my social media. I've not been networking. I've not been whatever else it could be that's actually driving the needle forward. And I think that is so, so important to establish the difference, like you said, between what is intentional work and what's just busy work that's not really getting you, it's not really getting you anywhere. I think that's so important.
Yeah, and busy work is exactly what I call it. And I've been there to say, I've redone my branding colours loads. And I've been in that trap because it's almost like a perfectionism thing. You think, well, I'm working on my business, but realistically, if you spent a week redoing your website, your sales wouldn't have increased that week. You wouldn't have, like, nothing's going to happen. And one thing I've been really saying and highlighting at the moment is, especially if you're someone who is getting your clients through social media platforms such as Instagram and TikTok, which a lot of us are, and it's incredible that we even have these platforms and they're free platforms. And I literally built a 6-figure business realistically through Instagram and TikTok. The first year, those were the 2 platforms I used, and everything came through that. And then we introduced like email marketing and everything like that. But if we're talking like early days, and this is the thing, you are a content creator before you are a business owner. It gets to a point where your business, like, you're increasing your client capacity, you're having more people come through your world, you're working so much in your business, i.e. doing podcast recordings, client calls, whatever that looks like, that you forget to actually work on the business, i.e. create content. And that's when it clicks with people, because people are thinking, well, I've got all of these clients, but why have I not got money coming through, and why are sales not coming through? Because people's payment plans are starting to end, and you're not generating like new leads and new clients to come through because you haven't been creating and posting the content. So I think that's actually a really key point. Like, yes, focus on the needle movers, but also I think, like, if you're someone who's getting clients through social media, one of your number one needle movers every single day, content. And for me, that looks like daily Instagram stories, which I don't know about you, Verity, but I just find Instagram stories very natural and easy thing to do. And then I try and post on Instagram at least every single day, either like in my feed or a reel, like to the explore page. And then my new needle mover for 2023 content wise is actually posting at least one TikTok every single day, which has been growing my TikTok like incredible as well. So
yeah, I love that so much. The next thing I want to ask you, because I think this comes up a lot in business, is people saying, kind of having this idea in their mind, but it was easy for them to get their business to scale to 6 figures because, I don't know, and then add something, whatever it is, on the end of that sentence. And I'd love to throw that over to you and know, what are your thoughts? Have you had people say things to you like, but it was easy for you because of... Yeah. I'd love to know how. Tell me about that.
100%. And you know what? It's actually really interesting because and I won't say exactly, but like, there is someone in my family who still says this to me, and it's like, but it was so easy for you, and like you're just so lucky. And here's the thing: it's not luck, and it was so easy for someone else. Everyone has different internal and external circumstances. I think the number one thing that every entrepreneur has in common, and if you want to be successful, is to have that grit and determination, that it's like, you're going to do whatever it takes to get there. I know for me, like, for example, I was working early hours of the morning. That could look like working early hours in the morning before you start your job. Like, it's going to look different for everyone. But for me, I had such grit and determination because it was like, I don't want to be in the supermarket job anymore. I don't want to be in retail. I don't want to work for minimum wage. I remember looking around at other people in the supermarket and thinking, like, I don't want to get to that state, because everyone was miserable. Like, everyone I worked with was so miserable. And no one wanted to be there. And I was thinking, right, I don't want to get to a certain age and be in the same situation. I knew I wanted to move out of my family home because things were a little bit toxic. I wanted to get my own house, which I'm now in. And there were so many things I wanted to achieve. So it's kind of like, you can have people that will say, but it was so easy for you because X, Y, Z. But reality, everyone has different circumstances. We all have the resources available to make success. And I think, like, there's this big thing around investing financially, but you can actually invest in various different other ways. You can invest your time in listening to podcasts like this one that are free. I also have a podcast. I share so much free information, YouTube videos, books. I tell you what, obviously I was working in the supermarket. I think I literally got like £600 per month. I used to pay rent to live at home, paid for all my own bills and everything. And I think I was left with maybe like £100, £200 disposable income at the end of the month. I would invest that £200 every single month back into Styling Social. And then everything else was just time investment. I would walk to work and I would listen to a podcast. Sometimes I'd even have it on in like a headphone during my shift, but we don't.
So we won't go
there. I just made it work. Like, I literally remember when I worked at Co-op, I would go into the staff toilets and respond to clients on Instagram DM. I'd post stories in the toilets. Like, you just make it work. And I think as well, something that's important, it's kind of like the flip side of this, is maybe you're thinking, it's so difficult for me because XYZ, and it can be really easy to almost fall into like a victim mindset around that and really see your circumstances as something that's holding you back, but just see it as a blessing. For me, yeah, my supermarket job was not the one, and you know, I didn't want to be there, but what it was doing was building my confidence, my communication. It has installed something in me that has made me never want to work in retail again. And if anyone has worked in retail, you know exactly what I'm on about. And also it gave me the finances to be able to invest. Yeah, it might have only been a couple of £100 every single month, but as the business started to bring in money and that was kind of the top up, that was the job that, and it, like, that was the thing that made Styling Social start in the first place. If I didn't have any money to invest in my business, I probably wouldn't have grown as quick. So I think that's really important as well, is to not kind of fall into that victim mindset and think, oh, this isn't where I want to be right now. I don't want to be in this job, or I want to have the 10k months, but I'm making 2k a month, or whatever it looks like. Try not to see it as a like bad situation, and instead try and see the good in everything. And I know it's so easy for someone to sit there and say that, especially someone who's in a position like myself and has been through that. But honestly, that was the mindset I've had since day one. It's like, right, I'm not where I want to be right now. And from someone like myself who is so far ahead in their journey now, it doesn't go away. You're always going to want the next thing. There's always going to be a bigger goal that you want to hit, or the next income, or you want to then, like, I want to do live events this year. There's always going to be something else you want to do, and you're not going to be there just yet. But that's a beautiful part of entrepreneurship, is you're constantly growing and you're constantly working towards the next thing. So try not to play a victim to your own circumstances, and instead see it as a blessing. If you've got time and you've got internet access and you've got a laptop or a phone, you can build an online business. And I think that's incredible about the online industry as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you're saying there. It's working with what you've got. And you've just made me think as well that last night I was cooking and I had my laptop open next to the cooker. I had one daughter playing, the other daughter was with my husband, and I had a training video from, I can't remember who now, but you know, there was a course that I'd enrolled in and that was playing whilst I was cooking. You know, it would be very easy for me to turn around at the end of the day and be like, I've got no time to do this. Well, actually, it was taking me half an hour to cook anyway, so I might as well have had it on, because I was getting an extra half an hour of like self-development there. So to me, that just made sense. Like you said, you've got to kind of consider what you've got. I mean, you could have spent that time walking to work listening to music instead, but
exactly,
you spent the time on your self-development there. You could have spent that like 100-200 quid on, I don't know, going out or whatever, but actually it's like, well, for a few months I'm just going to suck it up and this is what I'm going to invest in instead. We've all got those choices, and I'm sure there are some people being like, yeah, but I don't have an extra 100-200 quid at the end of the month. That's fine, I'm not saying you have to, but like you said, there's YouTube, and there are some YouTube videos which are 10 minutes long and they have got more information and more goodness in them than like 2 hour long YouTube videos. We just don't watch Netflix for one evening. That's my, well, 100%. I say that it's easier said than done, but you know, it's about prioritizing. And like you said, if you want to get somewhere, you're going to find that drive and determination to get you where you want to go.
Sure. I think this is the thing. It's like, how bad do you want XYZ, whatever it is you're going for. I'm someone who, I literally do not have the attention span for TV at the moment. Like, I can't watch it. Everyone's like, oh, you're watching Love Island, and I'm not. I didn't watch it last year either. And I used to be someone who would always watch like Love Island and stuff like that. And like reality TV was always my thing. And I'm not saying don't watch reality TV. If you enjoy it, watch it. But there are going to be phases in your business, especially in those early days, where you do make sacrifices in order to, it depends. Like, it ultimately depends. If you want to have quick growth that is still sustainable, then you're going to make sacrifices. Like you said, I could have quite easily, and I was young, so I could have quite easily spent that money going out with friends. But for me, it was like, I wanted to get my head down. I wanted to build this business because I knew where I wanted to go. And that's a really good thing, actually. Make decisions based on where you want to go and not your current reality. That is a really big thing, especially in early days of entrepreneurship, and even so on. Like, that's still advice that I apply now. Constantly make decisions based on where you want to go, and that will help speed up your success. But yeah, like you say, look for those little gaps, as you mentioned. And it's so weird actually thinking back to when I used to walk to work, because like listening to podcasts, there are so many podcasts that I used to listen to, and I learned so much about business from, and they were completely free. Even Instagram content TikTok content. You can learn so much from people's free content that is going to kind of give you that first boost. Yes, of course, paid content you kind of get, you're either getting higher proximity, personalized support, or a deeper level and understanding of certain strategies and whatever. But you can get to a certain stage with free content if you physically do not have the like finances available and disposable, then there are other ways you can invest into your business. So yeah, I think that's so key. Just looking for the gaps in your day. Like you say, you're making dinner, you've got the children around, but you can use that time to listen to a training or listen to a podcast. So yeah, I think that's a really, really great point.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been known to like do trainings at like 3 a.m. when the baby wouldn't go to bed before. That is not something I'd necessarily recommend, but that's just like my personality of like, oh, how am I going to spend this 10 minutes wisely? She won't go to sleep. I'm feeding her. Let's watch something instead. But never mind, we won't go into that. So another thing that I want to talk about is the anti-hustle culture, because, well, first of all, let's start by saying we know that hustle culture is such a big thing online. It's like, you can do this, you can do that, just hustle, hustle, hustle. But one of the things that you're really big on is actually the anti-hustle culture. So talk to me about that. What is the anti-hustle culture?
Yeah, and I think how this all came about was basically in my first few months of business, I burnt myself out literally to the point where I was in hospital. I thought I was having like some sort of heart attack. My beats per minute was like 190 or something. And I remember going to A&E because I genuinely thought I was having a heart attack. And they were like, oh, like, we think you might have a heart infection, like put me in this wheelchair, like wheeled me around. And I was thinking like, oh my God, this is like the end of me, basically. Like, I was freaking out. Anyway, did all the tests on me and I was in A&E for hours and hours. And they were like, we think it's just like stress and pressure because everything is fine with your bloods. And I was like, oh my God, that is because I'm putting so much pressure on myself to achieve a certain result in my business. This was like literally the first couple of months of business. And I was like, this is not sustainable. Like, this is not the way I want to build my business. I shouldn't be feeling exhausted. I shouldn't be stressing and like, no one was putting the pressure on me but myself. And that was really a breaking point for me, that kind of changed everything and shifted myself into a new mindset where it's like, if I want to build this business and I want to do this thing and I want to have all of this success, like, I need to change something and it needs to change now. And again, I was following so many people that were promoting like working 24/7 and, you know, working 12-hour days and all of the things. And it was really confusing for me and challenging because I knew I had to work late hours because that's just the way that my schedule and routine was because of my like 9-to-5 job. So I was trying to figure out a way and a way that would balance that out. So I allowed myself like, right, okay, we sleep in the day, we work, and then we do a couple of hours. And like I said at the start, like focusing on the needle movers. But I think for me, like the anti-hustle culture is, let's build a business, let's take inspired action and let's work, but also let's make a lot of time to actually live our life in between. And that's something I showcase a lot on my social media. And I make it evident that, you know, I'm not working 24/7 in my business because I physically don't. Typically, I would work maybe 4 hours a day. And in those 4 hours, I focus on the needle movement activities. Now, it's very easy for me to do that because I'm at a stage in my business where I have a strong social media presence and my product suite is set up in a certain way. And, you know, everything is kind of working for me. But you can still have, let's say, for example, like maybe you're going to work 6 to 8 hours a day and you focus on needle movement activities, and then you'll gradually decrease your work hours. But what you don't want to be doing is spending, you know, 12 hours or even longer working on your business, not making time for friends and family, sacrificing relationships, friendships. I used to literally have no social life. I wouldn't work out or go to the gym or anything like that. I would not make time for myself. Like, I wouldn't be getting my hair done, nails done, lashes, like all of these things. I would literally do nothing but work. And it got to the point where it was like, and this is so unhealthy and really, really bad. And don't do this, but I'm just sharing my experience of like, this would say maybe the first 3 months, maybe a little bit more in business, maybe 3 to 5 months. And I was getting so obsessed because it was like, right, I'm starting to see results and this is working. Let me keep putting more work in. And I would like skip meals and stuff like that just so I could work because it's like, oh, I don't have time to go and make food. Like, I need to do this. And it was so hustle, and I was following so many people that were promoting the same, and it was like, if you want this successful business, you've got to work really hard. And of course there is an element of working hard, but it's having that balance. And I think a lot of my mindset and beliefs around hard work, and I say hard work with like quotations, hard work and I guess overworking, is my dad has this belief, and he always used to say it to me, like, work really hard, you'll be fine. Work really hard, you'll be fine. And there is truth in what he is saying, and he doesn't say it in a malicious way. My dad is probably like my number one supporter with my business. But as a child, like hearing that all the time and then going into adulthood and business, it was like, I need to work really hard, otherwise I can't get the result. And I'd see people online, and you know, they've maybe got like they've had a 5k month, 10k month, and they're saying about how they've barely worked this month, and I'll be like, that's not true, because you know, you can't get that result. You have to work really hard if you want that. And like my brain physically couldn't accept and understand that someone could make A, that type of money, B, do it without working really hard. So that was like a really big thing for me, was actually reprogramming my mind and changing my beliefs to something that I believed in, and then also looking for proof that that is true. So looking for other people that show that that is true. And I think that's what I love, and like a big part of my especially my personal brand, is that I get to show that, and I get to be that person that people can look up to as proof of like, look, you don't actually need to sweat your business 24/7, and you can still see major results. But yeah, it's kind of like what we said at the start around focusing more on the needle moving activities in your business. You can work really, really smart, and you can, like, we're in an amazing position right now in the online space where it's like, if you work really smart, you can scale quickly, but you just need to know the right things to focus on.
Absolutely. And it's having that insight, isn't it, to be able to look into yourself and think, well, where are these core beliefs coming from? And then either you can run with them and potentially work yourself into the ground, or like you said, you can actually look at those internal beliefs and really start unpicking them and being like, well, where is this coming from? And I can completely relate to that. I mean, I'm a complete perfectionist. As a child, I was one of those overachiever children, in terms of, I said this to a friend the other day, and she was like, do you know what, that does not surprise me at all, Verity, because I played the violin, I was in the orchestra, I played the piano, I did swimming, I was a guide, I was in Girls Brigade. I don't know if Girls Brigade even exists anymore, but like, you know, get my point. I was doing that, I was helping out, you get my point. I literally every single day of the week I had a different activity after school. I had activities at the weekend. I just did everything. But all of the activities that I did, you then, like, there were competitions around them, or there were like grades and exams and what have you. And it kind of ended up getting me into this process of thinking that unless I got a certificate at the end of something, it wasn't worth doing, which actually, when I went into setting up my business, was really, really difficult for me to be like, but I need a certificate at the end. I need it to be absolutely perfect. And I guess, kind of like you, I started actually looking in at that core belief system. And actually, the minute that I started thinking, do you know what, it doesn't need to be perfect. And this goes back to what you were saying right at the beginning about like your website, your brand colors and stuff, because I was that person spending so much time being like, no, I need to find the exact hex color. I need to, like, it needs to look like this person because they're major successful and stuff. Yeah. And it was when I started unpicking that I was like, doesn't really matter, because actually, was I getting sales? Was I pulling in clients with the brand colors changing a little bit? No one cared. In fact, actually, there's been tumbleweed on my Instagram because I've completely neglected it for like the last week. And I think what you're saying about really looking at what are those core beliefs that you have and being able to work on those and then figure out how that's being applied to your business, I think is so important, particularly around that anti-hustle culture there. So important.
Yeah, for sure. And I like what you said around the perfectionism as well, because I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. If you're doing these busy tasks, it is the perfectionism. But reality is, if you are showing up consistently, you're your true, authentic self, people aren't buying from you because you have branding like so-and-so. That person isn't successful because of their brand colors. Yes, it plays a part in terms of like buyers psychology and all of the things. You're naturally going to be drawn towards a brand and that kind of fits the same vibe as you. But there's been so many people I've bought from that don't necessarily have the same aesthetic as me, but I just love them as a person, and I think the content that they share is really valuable, and I've learned something from them. Like, people buy from people. That is the biggest number one thing. They don't buy because your brand color is pink or because it's white or black or whatever. They buy from you for you. And I think, again, like around the beliefs, if you're struggling to show up as your authentic self, then I would really dig deep and think what's actually coming up for you there. Because I know as well, like when I first started my business, I would look at other people that were like super out there and all of the things, and I'd not that I would think it was cringe, but it would kind of like make me uncomfortable. And I remember looking at that thinking, why is that making me uncomfortable? Because deep down I knew I was exactly the same. And now I share that on Instagram and stuff, and I'm so my true self. I couldn't even be more of myself, both online and offline. And I've had someone recently actually meet me who follows me on like Instagram stuff. She was like, oh, you're actually exactly the same in person. And I was like, yes. And this is the thing, like, people are naturally drawn to someone who is their true authentic self, and you're basically given permission to other people be themselves as well, which I think is quite nice.
Don't you find it easier as well though to make content when you're being authentic?
Oh yeah,
I just find it so much easier.
Yeah, and that's how it should be. It should, if something doesn't feel like it's flowing and it feels restrictive and it feels hard, you're either overthinking it or like you're just not, just be yourself. And I know it's such cliche advice, but honestly, that's probably been the biggest thing in my business. I can't tell you the amount of clients, and I did like the membership lives recently on Styling Social, and I've had various clients come through. I had a new one-to-one client come through yesterday, and so many people, they go, I'm just magnetized by your energy and I just want to be in your vibe. And like that, people always say that to me, I'm magnetized by your energy is addictive. And the reason why that's an energetic shift compared to like my content maybe back in 2019 is because 2019 Ellie was not my true self. I was literally like shy online, and it was really strange. Whereas now, like my confidence I have in real life, I'm able to have online as well. And I don't always try and be like a super professional person. Like, I'm literally just myself online. Yes, I have a lot of knowledge on business and expertise, but I can share that in a way where I'm still able to be myself, and people can feel that. People can feel that energetically when you're yourself and you're not putting on this mask trying to be someone who you're not.
I think that's so important, because I think particularly online, it's so easy to almost try and be somebody else. And I think particularly in like the coaching world, it's easy for people to try and think, well, I need to elevate myself to like this person who I'm just not. But you're completely right. The people that I'm similar to you, as in like last year, I went right through my Instagram and I started unfollowing so many people. And it wasn't because I didn't like their content, but it came back to this whole idea that it wasn't aligned to me. And because, like you said, they were somehow telling me, somehow the messaging that I was getting was, if you don't work 24/7, you're almost failing as a business leader. And I'm like, well, I'm a mum, I run the business, the kids obviously have to be a priority, so I can't work 24/7. So I had to get rid of that messaging. And I think that sometimes it's really easy for us to think, I've got to match the different messaging that's coming to me.
Oh yeah.
So as you said, it's turning up as your authentic self, because if people don't want to buy from you, that's fine. They'll go to someone else. But equally, they're not going to buy from your competitor. They'll buy from you because, like you said, they're interested in your energy and what you've got to say.
Yeah, for sure. And like, here's the thing. If that person unfollows you or that person buys from you, then they weren't going to be a client anyway. They weren't. And if they were going to be a client, it wasn't going to be someone who was super aligned. Back in the very early days of business, because I wasn't showing up as my authentic self and I was trying to be professional, I was attracting like these professional people in my world. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being super professional, but I found like coaching really difficult at the start because it was like I was trying to be someone who I wasn't, versus now I jump on calls with my clients and like, you've been in co-working sessions in their membership, and it's such just a natural, normal human conversation because I haven't got to try and be someone who I'm not. I just be myself and I speak to you in the same way that I would almost like speak to a friend. I'm not trying to be someone who I'm not. And I think what's beautiful actually as well is so many of my clients, especially like one-to-one and mastermind clients, I still speak to now, and like I have genuine friendships with them, and it's almost like you're getting extra friends who are also entrepreneurs, and yes, they work with you and they're a client, but you know, it can also be a friendship, and that's really controversial, especially in the online space. It's like, never be friends with your clients, but for me, that's something that I actually really enjoy with my business, is when I jump on calls, it doesn't feel like work. I'm teaching what I know and I'm helping them and they're getting crazy results, but we're doing it in a really fun, nice way. So I think this is the thing. If it's not that person and that person unfollows you or doesn't buy from you, you're just making space and you're making room for the people that are aligned for you and like will be dream clients.
Definitely. I love that. I think that's going to be my soundbite for this episode. I absolutely love that. So, and I think that brings us on really nicely to this idea about scaling your business in a sustainable way, because I think a lot of people, like, yes, you know, they're doing what they do now, but they're also thinking further ahead, like, I want to get to XYZ. This, you know, these are my goals. So as somebody who did have, you know, you had that kind of disaster moment where you were in the hospital right at the beginning. And since then, because I followed you for quite some time on social media now, I've seen that sustainable growth that you've had. And as you mentioned right at the beginning, Styling Social is not just you anymore. You've got a team that work with you and make Styling Social what it is. So what kind of advice do you give or do you have for our listeners who are thinking, right, I want to make sure that how I scale my business is sustainable for me? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Yeah. And I feel like this is my thing at the moment. And I just made a freebie. So I'll give you the link for that. And those that are listening, you can grab it. It's a free ebook and it basically is a checklist of how you can sustainably scale. But some really good points to start off with. And this is some of this, like the first point I'm going to mention is such a basic foundation of business, yet so many people don't have it on lock. And then they wonder why they're not able to grow at a sustainable rate. And people always say to me, oh, but you had really quick growth. Yes, I had really quick growth. But have you also noticed that I've sustained that growth and it's still going up and up and up because I have done it sustainably and I've not just like, you know, put something out there and it's what's that saying where it's like you throw spaghetti at the wall and hope it sticks. Like It wasn't like that. I had the strategy and I had everything moving behind. So number one, you want to know your ideal client inside out. Make sure you have that really, really clear and then a clear customer journey for them to go through. So a customer journey is essentially, right, you've got your ideal client. Where are they at right now? What are they struggling with? What are their problems in business versus the other end of the spectrum? Where do they desire to be? Okay, what are all of the little things in between that they need to master in order to get to the end goal? So for example, my ideal client, they're someone who's got a business, but they're maybe bringing in a little bit of money in their business, but they want to get to maybe 10K months and they want that 6-figure business. That's their end goal. They need to master their mindset, energetics, strategy, launching, selling, all of these different things, right? So a customer journey is you are then going to intentionally set up your product suite to cover all of those different topics. Why? Because then you get repeat clients and repeat customers and therefore reoccurring revenue at the same time, because it's not like they're just going to take one of your offers and then they're going to learn everything. They're going to need to know the next thing. And if they've learned something from you and they've got results from you in one course or one program, they're going to join the next thing. And like, this is something that is so evident in my business and what makes it so sustainable is because I would say like majority of our clients, they don't just buy one thing, they stay with us long term because it's like literally yesterday, I don't know if you saw this on my story, I had a new client. So at the start of the week, she wasn't even a client of ours. She purchased Plan for Profits, which is the Asana organization course. Started taking it, was messaging me like, oh my God, Ellie, this is literally changing my life. And then messages me yesterday morning, can I have the link for Evolve? So someone who at the start of the week wasn't a client has now joined, not only got a course, but has now joined a long-term 3-month coaching program to be in high proximity with me and learn even more. And this is the thing, like when you not only provide high value in your offers, but you know your ideal client inside out and you set up a really clear customer journey and product suite to support that, you are setting up for long-term sustainable success. So I think that is like the number one thing. And that's like one of the major things that I help clients with, because it's the foundations of business, yet so many people aren't intentional with it. And then they wonder why people are just either signing up for one thing or, you know, they're struggling to have that repeat recurring revenue. I also think having systems and operations in place that allow you to have time to switch off from your business and live your life, because it's the thing, if you actually fill up your cup and you live your life, you are going to have so much energy to actually pour into your business so that when you are showing up, people will feel that energy. So having really solid systems and operations in place is going to be key. Again, Asana is literally the main thing that I use for that. So that's going to be a key for you if you currently don't have like a project management tool. I plan launches in there. I plan daily I get to do's. What else? Then they're my vision for the year. We organize everything for the team. They're in Asana, like literally everything you can do in there. And like I said, I used it from the very early stages of business, and I still use it now 3 to 4 years down the line. And all we've done is add more boards into Asana. Like, it's very flexible. I think another good tip for scaling sustainably is to have at least one type of long form content in your content and visibility strategy. So that could look like a podcast, that could look like a YouTube channel. Even if you just start incorporating some Instagram live trainings or maybe TikTok live trainings, long form content builds such trust with your audience, and it really establishes you as like the expert go-to authority in your industry, because people are able to learn so much more from you in long form content opposed to just like a graphic which is going to teach a couple of quick tips. Or, you know, people who watch and listen to long form content, they are the type of people that are going to invest with you. And I would say the majority of my like one-to-one clients and mastermind clients, they listen to my podcast on the regular. And the reason why that is because they're getting so much from the podcast, and then they want that next level and they want that personalized support. So that's really key as well. Another tip for scaling sustainably would be refining your launch and sales strategy. Make sure it works for you. There's so many different ways you can sell, but so many of us do like a launch strategy that, so you're forcing yourself to show up in a certain way, or, you know, you're forcing yourself to only talk about one offer at a time. That was something that I did. And like, if we're infusing human design into that, my human design is manifesting generator. I like to do a lot of things. I like to talk about a lot of different things. So why would I restrict myself to talking about one offer at a time? It doesn't. So it's really about finding a launch strategy that works for you, as well as a sales strategy. I think that's going to be key. If you want a sustainable business, you need to be almost like in love with your business. People always ask me like, how you seem so in love with your business, like it seems so fun, it seems so simple. It's because it is. It's because I build it that way, and everything I do I make sure I enjoy. And if I'm not, outsource it, or let's refine it and change it. So I think that's really key as well.
Definitely. I love what you were saying as well about outsourcing the things that you maybe don't enjoy so much, or you just know that you need a second person's eyes on it, because again, it's so easy. And I guess it goes back to what we were saying about working busy hours as opposed to like actual business hours. It's so easy for us to get really caught up in, oh, I have to do this, and it might take us like 6-7 hours because we're just not interested in it. But actually, if you outsource it to the right person, that could be like maybe 30-60 minutes worth of work, because that's their thing and that's what they love. And for you just keep putting it off and like, you know, dragging it out, what have you. And I think that idea of outsourcing is just so smart, and also realizing when you need to outsource something, because as you said, you get to a point as well in your business where you can't do everything yourself because you are only one person, and that's when you're just going to end up burnt out, as you found out the hard way. So I love that. I think there are some really, really key tips in there for our listeners. Then, if there was one thing that they could take away from this episode, what would it be?
One thing they could take away from this episode is be really intentional with building your business. Think of work backwards from what your dream life is, and then figure out how you can build a business to support that dream life. Because a lot of us, we leave our 9-to-5 jobs to build this business, but then we build almost like a soul-sucking business, and we're working 24/7 in it. So figure out what does your dream life look like, because everyone's is going to look different. For me, I like to have a lot of time freedom, and I like to have a lot of flexibility. Build your business around that.
I love that. I think that is beautiful advice right there. There is nothing I can add to that. It's gorgeous. So for our lovely listeners, where can they catch up with you, find out more about your services and offers? Obviously, we'll have everything that we've mentioned linked in the show notes, but where can people catch up with you and find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so I have I'm on various different social media platforms. My personal Instagram and TikTok is Ellie Blake Coach. We're Styling Social as well on Instagram, and we also have Styling Social the podcast, so you can check that out. But you know, I'm floating across both social media platforms. My team also support with the pages, but if you want like daily stories and to see more of kind of like behind the scenes of entrepreneurship and business advice, then Ellie Blake Coach would be a really, really great page for you to follow. And I post daily both on Instagram and TikTok, so definitely check that out. And there's various different ways you can work with me, whether that's independent learning or something like high proximity, like coaching and masterminds. I have stuff like that, but I also have like the membership that Verity is in, and I have courses and things like that. So yeah, there is literally something for everyone, and there's a range of different topics from money manifestation, business strategy, the energetics mindset. There is literally something for everyone.
There really is so much. I can attest to that, being part of your membership. There really is. And it's not just the range of topics, but also what I love about your product suite is I feel like there's a range of things depending on what your price point is as well, and where you're coming from that price point, which I think is just super, super important. So as I said, everything is going to be linked in the show notes below, but do go and check out I say various, but it's everything that Ellie's got going on, because there is so much goodness that you guys, as our lovely listeners, can dive into there. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. It has been absolutely fantastic. I feel like there has just been so much goodness and so much information that people can take from this. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yay, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Confident CEO podcast. Before you go, I would absolutely be overjoyed if you could take just 2 minutes to leave me a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews are a great way to tell Apple Podcasts how much you enjoyed the show, and it helps the algorithm to push out the podcast to more people, thereby helping us to help empower even more badass businesswomen to grow their inner CEO and grow to be the confident CEO of their business that they can be. I love to shout you out in your reviews as well. So you never know, you might be hearing your name on the podcast in the next episode. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.